Hey, we're slowly getting the hang of this, aren't we?
Hey, let's see. Got it. James got another little haircut, or you just got, is that your Sunday look? Shave?
I
No.
don't know, man. I brush my hair once a month, whether it needs it or not.
Okay. So how often do you shave?
I gotta shave often because I look like homeless Mike when I don't shave. So I don't like the homeless look.
Okay. Okay. So you're looking professional today.
That's right.
Oh, groove.
I got my degree here in the background. Where is the degree?
I noticed that yesterday. Cool beans.
Here we go. There it is, right? I gotta
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
larger so people can see it.
Yeah.
I gotta get the license over there too.
Yes. So what are we talking about today, my friend?
Heck, I don't know. So dang. The cute lady's calling me. I gotta let her wait.
You got
What are
two
we
ladies
talking about today? So my ex-mother-in-law Barb and I are working again on the experiment of loving the world, delighting the world into excellence. And she's working on this with her fellow grandmother, and it's really interesting to watch the process and then to feel it with this guy. I've taken on Richard, who was living in an Arroyo, right, till about a year ago. He's been on my property for a year, and he's been pretty non-functional for no, and so now I'm trying that with him. I'm just like, yeah, I know you can do it. He's got a job now. He rents my car, $20 a day when he needs it. And the energy that we're putting out to people of, I know you can do it, without any judgment, is changing the way people are interacting with us. So that's just coming back to that, both of us from a period of being a little bit worried about the whole, and it's interesting because the where Will Smith felt he had to fix whatever was going on by hitting somebody. And we're like, wow, that comes to, that's a whole thing we have in the world of 90% of us respond to kindness and lovingness. And what we see in our movies here in the US is you got to kill the bad guy. Who's the bad guy? Well, anybody else, right?
Anybody doesn't believe what you believe.
Right. Well, right. And then you have some people like the invasion of what's now the United States by Europe. Unless they were killed, our ancestors, my ancestors from Europe, were going to take over this territory. And they did. And they killed off the 12 to 30 million indigenous people down to like a 250,000 at in the 1920s. So anyways, there's that group, but there's so many interpersonal actions where responding to a perceived slight with love changes the whole experience. So that's the first thing we're going to talk
about. As you were saying, there's several thoughts that I had. I mean, one of them, I'll bring it to modern day news events. I'm looking at the news this morning and seeing all of the bodies left behind in one of the cities there in the Ukraine by the Russians, and they're trying to decide whether it was, first of all, I don't understand about, I guess, an act of war or criminal or war crimes or genocide. I don't understand all that. You were talking about the early settlers here in the United States came here. What makes what Vladimir Putin is doing or Russia's doing right now in Ukraine any different than what happened here in America?
Right, it's the same thing, right?
I think so, but what do I know?
What do we know? Yeah, so we look at a lot of history, and there's and of course for me as an outsider, I wasn't raised in the Judeo-Christian or that group of Europe and Central Asia group where they kill each other all the time. And it's fascinating, right? Because there was a guy recently saying, well, we have to stop the invasion of Ukraine because they're Europeans like us. Those people in Asia, they've been fighting forever. And I'm like, really? What about the 100 Years' War? What about the War of the Roses? What about the whole King Arthur legend? What about Alexander the Great? What about the World War I and World War II, which were Germany and England, right? Germany, England, France, Italy. It's like, oh, so you're just going to pretend all that never happened and say it's okay to mess with Asia, which I don't really, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Egypt, China, they're all Asians and they kill each other all the time, unlike us. And I'm like, unlike us. And then another guy brought up 1 million people died in Yemen in 2019, 2020. We don't give a,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden these rich white people in the Ukraine are dying and the US is all, what did one lady, Laura Coach, she's like all the pearl clutching all of a sudden. And for me, it's like, why did we invade Iraq? Because we could. Why did Russia invade? And I said we again, and there was a great guy said, I didn't invade Iraq. I wouldn't have done that. So why do I say we? That's a great question. And why did the US send troops into Afghanistan? Well, we made up a good reason. So now the Russian government has a good reason in their mind to invade the Ukraine. And to me, they're all the same. Whatever's going on in Yemen, the European invasions of Africa, or what's now the United States or South America, it's all the same. It's fear and greed.
It's interesting you say it's all the same. I tend to have to go along with you, but one of the things I think that I may tend to venture in my mind, where a place that I don't think you go to as much. The thing that frightens me the most when I try to get into the mind of these leaders, Putin, Trump,
right,
and the other things, it frightens me because I can almost see if I were in their positions making some of the same decisions. And
right.
I don't know whether that comes out of a human experience based on your level of resources, and I'm sure that has something to do with it. It's much like when you don't have, when you just started to buy a new vehicle and you don't have much money. Most people buy a used vehicle, and they may have an eye set on Corvette, let's say for example, especially America. Most young men would love at some point have some kind of sports car. But when you get into an area where you can really afford a sports car, Corvette, and you have options, you may look at it a little differently. And so, I don't know. As you were saying it too, Jaime, I think of King Solomon when he says there's nothing new under the sun. The Bible also says there's always going to be wars, rumors of war. The world as we know it has never been about war, about some kind of conflict. And
right,
is that as natural as we're calling ourselves intelligent, civilized human beings now? But does that same old hunter-gatherer survival instinct back during caveman time when they hit each other up over the head and rocks and stuff,
right,
is it still part of our DNA? And for whatever reason, it's so different in King Solomon, looking out in the courtyard and seeing was Bathsheba, I think it was Bathsheba, another man's wife. And she was so beautiful, he had to have her, but he was the king. So he was in a position to call the shots on how to get this man's wife. And it's like, wow. And I would like to think if I were in that position, I would not do those kind of things. But it's real easy to say that in the position that I'm in, because I'm not in that position. But again, like I say, it frightens me to think that if I were in that position, I could see how they could do some of that stuff. And as you know, I'm a veteran of war, Vietnam War. And I was thinking the other day, one of the proudest moments in my life, and I think that was the question that I was answering on Facebook. And I was kind of going back over my life. I'll never forget, I'm in Vietnam, this guy, they had the these tunnels. Everybody heard about the tunnels where the Viet Cong would stay and hide. And we had just gone in and sent it, put some bombs down there, some grenades, whatever. And this one guy was being pulled out of there. And Jaime, the only thing was connected on one of his arms was the skin. And I mean, the bones were broken. And this person who was in charge, I think it was probably a sergeant, kept pulling this man's arm, and the skin wouldn't tear. It just kept stretching and stretching. And the human being inside of me said, "Hey, Sarge, man, I'm surprised you're doing that." And I felt that, I mean, that's one of the proudest moments I've ever had in my life. And I think back and said, wow, there was another human being that was my enemy, but still, that was a human being. Yeah. And I think when we stay focused on our humanness, for lack of any other word, our human side of us, and we stay there, and we as human, I think when I'm dealing with myself as a human being, that means when you and I are in contact, I'm dealing with you as a human being. So the decisions that I make, it may cost me my life, but at least I've done it not for greed, not for selfishness. And we all have done that at some point in our life. Not thinking about, now I'm getting older now, I'm looking back over my life, I could probably be a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more humane in some of the things that I do. I would like to be that way. I would like to think that I could be a head of a country and not sit back and be willing to wage war because I've got the button. I've got the artillery. I've got this war. I got this war machine that if you don't do what I say you can do, I can always use it. I've got influence in the economy. So it's an awkward place to be, Jaime, where you and I are. And I think for me, when we just stay focused in our place, but then if we just stay focused in our place, then our society doesn't advance. So it's an interesting place to be, this journey called life that we live in as human beings. And every day we all have all these decisions to make. Thank God you and I don't have have to make any decisions about life or death or we don't. And thank God today you and I we're not on the street. We're not homeless.
Right.
We have roof over our head. I just got finished eating supper. I had a great supper. I had nice. My wife did some fried chicken a new kind of way. It was nice and good, different flavor. My Tabasco sauce on it. Thinking about you when I was doing the Tabasco sauce, man. But anyway,
there we go. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's this whole journey, man, and that is what we're talking about. How as we've stated, we're not saying anything new because this has basically been a conversation since the beginning of time since people start communicating.
Here's an interesting thing about the whole conversation we're just having is one thing is there were lots of little groups of people who didn't believe in war and didn't do war, and whoever we is, killed them all off. And then the social Darwinists, everybody's like, well, they should have been warlike. But I don't find war pleasing or fun or aesthetically valuable or moral. And I don't know why these people keep saying that. Fellow Jordan Peterson, he's one of them. There's so many people. And we had this little mythology of like Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, a great person, talk about accepting people and being kind and generous and all that. And then people like, oh, he needs to have some credibility, so we're going to say he was a Navy SEAL. And I'm like, Navy SEALs kill people. And I think when you do that, you give up a part of your soul. And so why are they the people that we go to for credibility? And the peacemakers, we denigrate them. And here's the thing, right? Again, it's like, oh, it's in our DNA to fight. Well, it's in our DNA to cooperate. Why don't we focus on that? And the whole culture in America focuses on that desire to fight and kill. And I'm like, why is that exalted above the desire to cooperate and listen and negotiate? And it's a justification, I think, for past and future bad behavior. Now, these people, they say, well, it's good behavior to kill. And I'm like, why? Where do you get there? And I don't get it. So that's a thing that's really bugged me for years about what we tend to do around our quote heroes. I don't see them as heroes.
Well, I tend to one to two. I remember the first time I heard about the New World Order. And shortly after that, I heard about, read an article about population control. And I wonder, even in war, they have casualties of war. And all wars aren't on with bullets and bombs. If there is a power structure or a financial institution or the monetary system is monitoring, I think that may be at the top level of all of the disciplines, of all the governments, of all the powers in place, is the monetary aspect, the commerce, and commerce really
Right.
controls all of us. And
Yeah.
so if the population is expanding faster than they can control the distribution of goods and services, then you got to get rid of some of the people. Now, whether they say it as plain as I'm saying it, so the gun manufacturers, the war machines, the people who make these bombs and stuff for weapons of war, have factored that in. Well, okay, it's just part of like population control. So when it gets used, however it gets used, that's one less person we have to worry about.
However, sure. However, all the evidence points to the more conflict there is, the higher the birth rates there are. So anytime there's war, you have billions and billions of babies who are then neglected because of the war. So the population always grows during war. And of course, so that's an interesting thing, right? So who's trying to control the population? Any sensible community knows you shouldn't grow beyond your ability to feed. And there's such things as birth control and abortion and all that those people then avoid, and then they want you to go to war with somebody. But I don't, again, when we were talking, right, you were saying that the government owns everybody and people don't own themselves. And I'm like, well, but we're a community. We have a mutual obligation between ourselves and our family, between our family and the extended family, between the tribe or the city and the individual and the family and all that. And people have tried to turn that in order for us to turn against our government. And of course they say, oh, there's a government control of mind. I'm like, right, if your mind is uncontrolled, what are you going to do? And I think I was talking, so controlling the population through saying, yeah, we're not going to just, and there's this forced birth thing that goes on, right? Women can't say no to sex, and then women have to have babies no matter whether they want it or not. And so there's a forced thing of more population. And anybody that talks about, well, women should be allowed to control when and how many babies they have. Oh, well, you're doing eugenics. I'm like, no, the idea is that, and I did a paper on this because it was about population control and how we can't trust people to take care of the environment. We have to force people to take care of the future and the environment. The individual human is an irresponsible, immature child, and we have to control their behavior. And I was like, well, I don't know that that's true. And you can raise people to be immature and irresponsible, and that's called greed, Wall Street, war, whatever you want to call it, right? So I was saying the evidence this guy showed for people as irresponsible is the more stress there is on a population, the higher the birth rate inherently, right? So we create artificial stressors in this world in order, well, I don't know why, right? And then we have population explosions due to the stressors that we created, and then we're upset about it. It's like, if so, the evidence points in the modern era, if women are allowed to govern as well as men, population stabilizes. If women are property or chattel or not allowed to govern, then the population explodes, and the population grows faster than the ability to feed and clothe themselves. So what's going on with that? Why? So, and then the people are saying, well, we got to force people into things so the population, won't explode. But as soon as you do that, the population does explode. So it's the opposite effect. Again, so the individual freedom to control their finances and their reproduction, who they have sex with, how they make money, where they spend their money, and whether they have kids, you have a stable, you have less violence, you have more stability, you have people acting more loving and kindly. When you take that away, you have population explosion, you have violence, you have people hitting each other and ending up in escalation to war. So I don't think that there's a large government the way the few greedy people would have us believe, owning us. It's these few greedy people, as Jordan Peterson says, 3%, right? And he's like, well, they take over everything. 3% of us are psychopaths. I'm like, but yeah, but that's wrong. And he has this idea that it's right. It's not right. But anyways, so how do we help? Well, so that group of people, they like violence, and they like some people starving and some people having a yacht made out of gold that costs $4 billion, or they think that's inevitable, right? And then the rest of us, we're like, we want to have a meaningful activity every day. We want to have loving partners. We want to have a connection to the future through our children. We want to have a sense of history. And we don't want to go to our meaningful activity every day under threat of being killed. And these other people, they don't care. They think that that's okay, that the threat, even if they don't think it's okay, well, you can never stop that. It's in our DNA. And I'm like, it's in your DNA, and your ancestors killed the peaceful people off. So I don't even know how to speak to that. Tell them, no, yeah, your ancestors were murderers, and you're saying that it's inevitable or okay. And I'm like, it's not. There's tons of communities that have been peaceful. There was a peaceful tribe that the Dutch, because they wanted to grow tulips in this island, they chased 600 people, a whole village, off a cliff. And if you didn't run, they killed you. They shot you or stabbed you. So you were either stabbed or shot to death by a Dutch citizen, or you ran off a cliff and committed suicide. And then they're like, well, they were so naive and stupid or whatever. And you're like, no, you were evil.
And the whole motivation behind that was because they wanted to grow tulips.
They wanted a what do you call it? The whole tulip market, right? They wanted to corner the market. And it's like, what? Why do you think that's okay? I don't get it.
I was interested to see you talk about women. Somewhere along the line in my life, whether student, my association with my mother and grandmother, the women in my life, I've always seen women, I won't say more valuable than men. I've always seen them as definitely as equally valuable.
Right.
And I probably give women more value because I found myself attracted to women. I mean, the thing that probably I love more than anything else is seeing a powerful woman, an intelligent woman, who understands that she's a woman. I personally have a problem with women who try to think they're as much man as I am now. And I want to get in a big controversy about that, but I mean, hormones sometimes makes some women more manly than, like, some men are more feminine, than masculine. But so that's a whole other thing. But women, to me, women really rule. And I think someone way back thousands of years ago realized that women had power over men that most men couldn't deal with. So the best thing they did was basically, try to legislate that women were beneath them because they didn't want women to exercise that power. And you and I both are guilty of our love for women.
It's funny, we both had strong relationships with our mothers, and have a deep respect for the feminine and for the individual females in our lives. So
I've always said if I ever had a real company, I would want to have my frontline people all women. I just think women, their approach, because I think a lot I've associated, and I've not done a study on this from my observation, their maternal instincts tend to give them a different perspective than us as men who are dealing with this masculine thing, this macho gladiator character where women are more compassionate. And I
Yeah.
like that in my life. I like uh, being compassionate. I love
Yeah.
these and
Compassion
thank
is
you.
awesome.
Yeah, I like that. So you and I hit a lot of topics when we talk, Carmen, and I love these
Right.
conversations. And it's just, and we just basically out and we just through our life experiences, through education,
Right.
we look at this world we live in, man, and even going back to this war in Ukraine right now. Now, I'm a prayer. I'm a meditator, and I'm just so thankful when I lay down at night and that I don't hear bombs over here. Last night we had some.
Yeah.
I live in the country. I'm hearing a whole. I thought it was gunshots, but Madeline said it was fireworks. But even still, here it is, April the 2nd, and a whole bunch of. I mean, way after midnight last night for 2 or 3 hours. I'm hearing what I thought was gunshots. So like I
Wow.
said, but I live in the country, and I understand it. So I did not go to sleep. I didn't worry about it because I could be anywhere. We could be anywhere in Sacramento. Last night,
Right.
6 people got killed and another 12 so got wounded. And so anywhere we could fall victim to a stray round or to the violence in the world.
Right.
But I believe if you and I choose to be in the light, to be positive,
Right.
most of that stuff will not come to us. Now we always hear, well, or he or she was a really good person, never bothered anybody. Well, we don't know why that person got that stray round, or that innocent child got hit in the house watching TV.
Right. Yeah.
Dead. We never know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
my philosophy is, take each day and each moment, and
Yep.
and be in tune to where you are, and just
Yeah.
be grounded. So it's just grounded and make decisions that being a little old lady in in the supermarket or the filling station or a child, innocent child. Uh,
Yep.
not only the things that we do, but the things we say around kids, so we live in a world where we have. I'm going to give it. We have equal good and equally bad going on, and we I know for me, a lot of stuff, just had a conversation with my wife tonight. A lot of stuff that I'm realizing now at this point in my life, opportunities or things or that I won't say opportunities missed, but I could see situations early in my life that if there were some opportunities there that I could have taken advantage of. I didn't, but I
Right.
still look back on it and I still take it as a piece of insight. And hey, look, you had all these opportunities and I don't care who you are. We all have in a lifetime many opportunities that we didn't take advantage of for whatever reason. We just didn't take advantage of.
Right.
But we still, like now, like I said, when I go back and this stuff floats up in my head, I can still glean from that some information that I didn't get at that point in time to fit into
Right.
insight and wisdom to now. So it's just being alive. I mean, it's just people taking advantage of people. We all get taken advantage of at some point. I got a package in the mail yesterday for I didn't order. It was $299. I called the people up. Well, did you open it up? Well, yes, I did open it. The only way I could find who sent it to me had to open it up. Well, so you can send it back. Well, who's gonna pay for it? Well, Mr. Terrell, you got to pay for it. Well, I didn't send it to me. I didn't order it. Well, you got to pay it back. You pay. We'll give the refund back after we get it. But I got to pay for it. It doesn't make sense. We take advantage of all the time, and it's sad, but we live in this world, and we got to let even in situations like that, Hami, not to push our buttons because it's so easy to allow even that situation like that to curse, swear. For me, my age right now, blood pressure go up over $299.
Right.
It's not right, but it's not the end of the life. It's not the last. It's not a life or death situation. So and then and who feel like that tomorrow? I gotta get online tomorrow and try to talk to these people again. Do I want to do that? Spend half the day, 2 or 3 hours to get $200 back? I don't know, but a lot of this stuff is all linked together. I think it all comes down to how we as individuals react or when we're in a situation that we feel as though we should be reacting on. And I think a lot of what you have done and I've done, we have chosen a certain discipline that we
Right.
like to see in our life. We would
Yeah.
like to see, and even with that, Jaime, we still mess up sometimes. I know you've had cases like I've had. Said, man, I didn't mean to say that. I could have dealt with that differently.
Right.
But that's life. It's part of life.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think for me, I've made lots of decisions against greed. And it's funny because I get a lot of people like, oh, if you were smart like me, you'd be rich. And I'm like, no, I chose not to take that route. And why did I choose that? Is because I thought it was immoral to take the route they took. Now, you have to be, I have been incautious in saying, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not a moral route. And you took it, and that is immoral. And they get really upset. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
So that's a big thing for me that you know, a friend of mine, she's like, oh, it doesn't matter how you get money, it's how you spend it. And I was like, I don't think that's true. And the whole
ooh,
people worship Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And I'm like, you know, there was an interview with Bill Gates where they're like, Steve Jobs says you stole all this stuff from him. And Bill Gates laughed and he's like, he's just mad because I'm a better thief than him. And so why are we worshiping thieves? What's the deal with that? They're better thieves than other people. And they have this idea of job creators, right? Walmart, Amazon. If it wasn't for Walmart, we wouldn't have jobs. And I'm like, it's not true. If it wasn't for Walmart, we'd have lots of little mom and pop stores. What is it better to have Walmart? I don't know. Is it worse to have? I don't know. But I do know the owners of Walmart are not job creators. Those jobs would be there no matter what, because people are going to grow food. People are going to buy food. People are going to make things. People are going to buy things, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing, back to who do we respect in, for example, in America, right? We say we love teachers, we refuse to pay. Oh, you can't spend money on school. We say we don't like greed. Who do we respect? Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Mark Cuban. Okay. You know what? We don't respect the caregivers. We respect the takers. Is that, I feel it's wrong, right? So I chose not to go that way. Is it wrong? I'm pretty sure. But there's a lot of discussion, right? And this guy the other day was like, well, how do you define selfishness? And I'm like, yeah, we kind of know if you take food out of a baby's mouth and it starves to death and you don't need the food, that's selfishness. It's not, you know, people start making these splitting hairs so they can justify their bad behavior. And it is universal. My friend Michael Ron was like, well, there's no universal things except marriage. And I'm like, you know what? If you go visit the psychopaths in jail or the CEOs of companies, they're not going to tell you the healthy universal values. They're going to tell you violence is good. If you're disrespected, you got to kill the person, and greed is good. We do know the universal, you know, we have Buddha, we have Jesus, we have several other people that we respect, and they have the universal thing: treat others as yourself. You got to think about your community. The community has to take care of the individual. The community needs to think about the future of the environment and that community. And there is one group of people in America like, oh, humans are so dumb and greedy that we can't trust ourselves to think about the future. So we need to have capitalism because greed will always figure out a way. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It doesn't make sense to me. So how does that relate to what, how do you know? Start out well with the conflict in Ukraine, right? So now people are raising the price of fuel because they can, because we're scared, because Russia produces a lot of fuel. And then this guy saying, well, a bunch of people are going to starve to death in Africa because the Ukrainians supply wheat to Africa. And I'm like, well, why aren't we over there in Africa helping them plant? No, we're over there, the China, the US, Europe are all over there stirring up trouble, so they can't plant because we're rewarding the greedy people there. It's an amazing little vicious circle. And then people are looking for these weird plots, and I'm like, it's banal, as that the lady who studied the Nuremberg trials, that the face of evil is not some imaginary distant government or lizard people, as a lot of people say, or aliens. It's these small-minded, petty, selfish people taking over communities and then larger communities who don't care about the future. That's the way I see it too. Anyways, that was a long lecture.
No, but a lot of good stuff there, Javi, and it's again, I got to go back to what I was saying earlier. This conversation we've had, this conversation has been going on since the beginning of time. That being said, I think you and I think we as civilized human beings have got to address this question from a personal perspective as to what is our role in this. And even like with you, what you said, you've made a decision. As you were saying, I realized that I'm still kind of caught in the middle because, again, I have an understanding about the influence of having more money. The part where I have not gotten organized on how to systematically control, or to not so much control, to manage that money. I see the benefits in having the money and the rewards. You can buy stuff with it.
Right.
But if you learn how to manage your money and you plan your life,
Right.
which very few of us do. I remember reading years ago that most people spend more time on planning a vacation than they do a life.
Yeah.
And they don't. And for whatever reason, that's not really taught, although it's taught. A lot of us don't hear it. You know, it talks about, even the Bible says, it talks about a vision, being able to write your vision in a manner that someone else can pick up and run with it. You know, journaling, we don't do that. I don't do journaling. I mean, I should. I think I in my mind, I keep a lot of stuff in my head, which I've been able to successfully keep a lot of stuff in my head.
Right.
But a lot of stuff that I'm sure that was there is gone. Some of them, thank God, it's gone. But then there's other stuff I wish that I had remembered. But
right.
So we have choices, Jaime, and I think in my understanding of the universe, greed has a place similar to that place of peace and harmony, like protons and neutrons, night and day, men and women. It's just opposite, and that opposite, in my mind, that is a balance. And is that balance? And we choose which side, whether we're going to live in the light or live in the dark. I mean, I've been hearing on a lot of TV shows. I think one of them was like this FBI International. I think it's one of them, or Blacklist. When they talk about the black web, there's supposedly a whole banking system in the dark web that you and I don't know anything about.
Sure.
And it's a whole culture in that dark place. And it didn't just start. I mean, even like I somewhere probably one of those shows, they talk about a banking system that's like 1,000 years old, that you go into some place in the Middle East and you drop off $3,000 to some shaman or somebody in a little tent, a little mud hut, and a couple hours later, someone in America can get that money. He's got it. It's like, wow. I mean, there are systems that you and I have no idea exist, Jaime.
Right.
I think that there's things that we know we don't want to do. I know I don't want to sell drugs. I know I don't want to rape, murder anyone. I know that. Right. I want to be at peace with people. But I walk out of my door, man, and I see neighbors around me I don't want to deal with. I don't want to deal with them mainly because they don't want to deal with me. So now, what do? When I see them, if I pull out of my driveway and I see them out front, I'll wave, hi. And a couple of them I've stopped and had a few words with them, but I know they're not my friends. But that's on them. I can still be friendly to them.
Right. Yeah.
So that's our choice. We've chose to be in the light and do positive stuff, and to consider how what we say, what we do, how can we affect our neighbors in a positive way, and that's our choice.
Yeah.
And I think if we do our job and we be on our job, that when the negative comes, when it turns the corner, we see it. Our instincts say, hey, look, across the street, that person or that situation, that's not cool. And I think we all have that instinct. I think we unlearn that. I think we all know. I mean, we can walk into a place sometime and, or a person can walk into a room and the baby's there, everything's nice and peaceful. Someone walks in and the baby starts crying. The baby instinctively knows this is not a good person. And we know that. We know it.
Well, that's a great thing you bring up, and it jumps to women especially, but anybody who's abused by their parents or their priest or their coach, they have to give up that instinct. And that's it's like 30 to 40% of us. And in America, beating, that's like, I'll give you something to cry about, all that. It's telling children, don't trust your instincts. And then if the bad person in your life that beats you or rapes you or steals from you is your parent or your priest or your babysitter or your coach, then where do you trust? And and so what do you do then? And we have I think 30-40% of us have that issue in the world, right? So you have all of us walking around, if you don't somehow process that. And then of course, as an adult, then you harm others. And if you had an okay childhood and you're harmed, if somebody, like these gang initiations, you got to go shoot somebody or beat up somebody or rape somebody before you get in the gang. That's these abused people then taking somebody in and turning them into that. And so that's a huge thing, right? So that's that. We have that instinct, and then it's beaten out of us, usually by our parents, our priest, or coach, or the army, right? How do you go and get trained to kill people? And I think my stepdad, he was born in 45, so he's the same age as you, pretty much. A couple years older.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, he got drafted, and he went, and he said they had to go stab dummies in basic training, and it looked just like his mom. So what does that do to you? And then you go to Vietnam, and he was killing people personally. I don't know. And it messed him up, made him crazy. So, and then of course, the Marines and Navy SEALs, Army Rangers were like, oh, they're the people we should emulate. And I'm like, really? Why not the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, the paramedics, firefighters? Why don't we emulate them? Oh, they're not as good. What do you mean they're not as good? I mean, what? So that, to me, that's a fascinating conundrum we have. And it isn't universal to all humans, right? There's these groups of humans that have taken over the world have an illness, I think, of the conflict. They were born in conflict, right? And born in neglect. And then what do we do? I mean, that is what's happening, right?
Yeah. It's I go back to something you kind of brought up, teachers in our society, and how basically what you was saying, how little value is given to teachers. And I'm in agreement with you. I think of our society, teachers should be perhaps one of the most highly rewarded, most respected professions. Right. I mean, because they're in a position to influence generations of people. Yeah. And instead of glorifying people and people that go into banking industries and make billions and billions of dollars,
right.
What does one human being need with $1 billion? Although I'll be more than happy to receive one today as well.
Yeah.
But you would too. But we probably would give away half of it.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Because there's a lot of evidence from studies showing that if all your needs are met, and at the point of the last study is around $75,000 gross income in the US, that meets your anxiety about the future, your anxiety about healthcare, your current needs for housing, entertainment, food, shelter, you never get happier. So if you have $75,000 and you're unhappy, you're going to start making $1 million a year. You're going to be just as unhappy. And it's funny that people don't recognize it. They just think, oh, well, I need 2 million. Well, I need 3 million. Well, I need 1 billion. And then we go, oh, they're job creators. I'm like, no, they're not. They are not job creators. You take I always tell people, if all the bankers in the world disappeared overnight, wouldn't be that big a deal. If all the farmers disappeared overnight, it would take us a couple of years for the non-farmers to learn how to farm. And that would be a big old deal. We'd have a big problem, you know, as we and we have a huge problem that we don't recognize, that we've been denigrating teachers since the 1970s. You know, we're trying to get rid of educators, and people are becoming more and more ignorant because they don't have good educators, and so we have a huge problem that we don't recognize, all the violence and ignorance and all this partisan stuff. So and then for me, yeah, then back to, I love your thing of what does James do about it? What does Franklin do about it? And first job, take care of yourself somehow, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
when your self-care is good, then you start thinking about caring for others. And that's another thing back to me with if you suggest birth control, that's eugenics. I'm like, but if you're 14, 15 years old, or if you're in poverty, you're living on the streets, why are you bringing another person into the world that you can't care for? You can't care for yourself. And people get all upset, and I just don't see it being okay. And then these so the US, Italy, Japan have all had big articles in their local papers. Oh, we don't have enough white people being born. I'm like, really? And they leave out that word white, but it's like we have a net growth of like 100 million people a year. So we don't have enough people being born. What do you mean? What are you talking about? So when women have agency and they see there's too many people, it's not conscious, it's not a plan, they just don't have as many kids, and then you don't have the population problem. Anyways, so we should wrap up, huh? What do we want to, any finishing thoughts, because those are kind of big issues?
No, I mean, well, I mean, like I say, you and I, we can talk for hours, and
I know, man.
talk about a lot, and I think it's all good stuff. Again, I like quoting the Bible. The Bible says, "Orange sharpens orange," and I've gotten into looking forward to these meetings. That's why I called you today. I mean, we talked yesterday, and didn't really go the way we wanted. Today's been
Right.
perfect. It's perfect this evening.
Yeah.
So, although we just kind of just rattling on this talk, but you can't. I mean, so much stuff going on, and so many topics. You and I both are concerned about the world we live in.
Yeah.
And we are both in a place where we like peace and harmony. We don't like conflict.
Right.
And we see it. We know it's there. It bugs me, and like it bugs you when people aren't being honest and fair and doing things right.
Right.
So as long as you and I continue to sharpen our swords, hopefully after the day and the next time we talk, we both become better people, and and because that's the only thing we can really do, Jaime. We can only perfect who we are, and hopefully that as we become more in tune to who we are, the kind of people we want, and we both believe that we want the right thing. But it's sad, but some people like Putin think, I got to give Putin and Donald Trump a little bit of credit. I like to think that they think that what they're doing is right too. Although I don't think that, it's different what I would do. But
totally.
Man, so like I said, we just need to keep on doing what we're doing, my friend. And hopefully someone somewhere along the line, if we leave this world and we have influenced one other person to be honest and being fair, not kill people and not take advantage of people, I think we've done our job.
Awesome. So I was thinking, I love that. And then for me, it's like, one thing I think, what would I do if I was the person I think I am when I'm confused? And the answer, if I can do it, is always great. And then there's what Spark and I found this thing, the job of the liberated mind is not to scold the world, but to delight the world into excellence. And then me and Barb working on this experiment of look for the best in myself and then the best in other people all the time, without denying whatever's going on. And then you find a lot of these interpersonal interactions with people they're afraid you're going to try to take advantage of them, or they're afraid you're going to try to hurt them. So they proactively act. And if they don't hurt you and you go, oh, hey man, what's happening, and treat them well, then they come back and treat you well. And it's not 100%, it's just most of the time. All right, let's sign off on that, hey?
Oh yeah. Because I was ready to go down another lane. Until the next time, my friend. You have a
All
good
right,
evening.
we got
All
another
right.
one. Awesome.
Leaving.